Hello there. How's your day going?
Fine.
I'm glad to hear that. Have you done anything interesting today?
No.
I see, I see. Likewise, I just
Hmm.
woke up not too long ago and I'm just getting ready for work soon. So, yeah, it's such a nice day outside, though. Do you have any recommendations for things I might be able to do when it's this nice outside?
Nope.
The weekend is coming up. Are you excited? Do you have any interesting plans?
Not really.
Okay, well, it was nice talking to you.
Thanks. You too.
The whole point of this was to demonstrate that the failure of small talk is not always our fault. This is something that I have pressured myself into feeling so many times where I would be talking to someone who is either not interested or not skilled enough, which seems like a very easy skill to have. It's just showing interest. But for some reason, some people are really lacking on this, and it's very hard to, carry a conversation after a certain point.
Absolutely. It's not always your fault if small talk doesn't flow smoothly. Some people just aren't great conversationalists or might not be interested in engaging. It's a shared responsibility to keep a conversation going. And if the other person isn't contributing, it can feel like you're hitting a brick wall. It's a bit like trying to play tennis with someone who just watches the ball go by without swinging their racket. You can only do so much on your own. Recognizing this can take some pressure off and help you understand that it's not a reflection of your conversational skills. Have you ever encountered someone who seemed interested initially but then became less responsive? What strategies did you try to keep the conversation going?
That is such a great analogy about the tennis. I think it's so fitting. There are certain indicators that suggest that the person might be interested in that conversation, but for one reason or another, they just don't seem to want to contribute to the conversation. And this can be a little tricky because sometimes you might misread the person. You might think that, oh, they're not interested, or, I'm just wasting my time or something. But come to find out, that might actually be them trying their best. So it can be quite a tricky situation to navigate sometimes.
That's a great point. It's true. Someone might be genuinely interested but not very expressive or skilled in showing it. It can be a bit of a puzzle trying to figure out their level of engagement. Sometimes people have different communication styles or maybe shy, nervous, or preoccupied, making it hard for them to contribute effectively to small talk. In those situations, it can help to gently guide the conversation with open-ended questions or topics that might pique their interest more. But it's also important to recognize when it's okay to let the conversation naturally wind down without feeling like it's a failure on your part. Have you found any particular strategies or cues that help you better gauge someone's interest or engagement during a conversation or while dancing?
Before I get to your question, I think that's such a useful tip is open-ended questions. By using open-ended questions, we're able to try to to spur a little bit more of a conversation. Although for a lot of these people that I'm thinking about, I'm not quite sure how much that would work. It's almost like whatever is making it difficult for them to express more, whether it's a lack of interest or whatever it is. I feel like that's usually going to overshadow whatever your attempt, whatever your effort is at open questions. So I'm not sure. As far as strategies that I might use to try to get people out of their shell in that sense, I don't know. I think that sometimes I just have to, it's almost like a challenge, right? You just have to. I just take that as an opportunity to practice my ability to maybe to try to bring them out of their shell. And if I'm not successful at that, as I said in the beginning, I've tended to take some of that responsibility, which I don't think is necessarily bad because it pushes me to be a better conversationalist. But on the other hand, I do have to be mindful of not getting carried away and being patient with myself, recognizing that it takes two to tango.
That's a great mindset to have, balancing the push to improve your skills while recognizing the limits of your control in a conversation. It's definitely a fine line between taking constructive responsibility and not beating yourself up over something that's out of your hands. Taking it as a challenge can indeed be a productive approach. It not only hones your skills, but also can make the interaction more interesting for you. And yes, patience with yourself is key. Conversations like dancing require a bit of give and take from both parties. Sometimes it might also help to subtly shift the conversation to topics that might naturally engage the other person more, based on any small clues they give away. Have you noticed any particular topics or approaches that seem to work better in bringing people out of their shell, whether in dancing or talking?
That's another interesting tip, to try to focus on topics that they might be more interested in. Sometimes it's hard enough trying to figure out what those topics are, if there are even any. And to go back to your previous question about situations where I found myself in a situation where someone is situations where I found myself with someone who seems interested in that conversation at least, and somehow they just are not contributing. It's in a dating setting, right? Like a woman I would go out with, for example, would seem like, I mean, the fact that they're there to begin with would suggest that they must be interested, but they would not really be, they would not be helping out in terms of the conversation itself. But like you said, it could be a multitude of reasons. It could be a lack of skills, it could be a lack of curiosity, it could be so many different things. It could be just their way of communicating. And it's really hard to move any sort of relationship forward when that is the types of conversations that we're having. I forget the last question you asked before I went back on your previous question. What was it you asked again?
I asked if you've noticed any particular topics or approaches that seem to work better in bringing people out of their shell, whether in dancing or talking. But your reflection on dates is really insightful. It's tricky when the other person seems interested but doesn't contribute much to the conversation. It can feel like you're carrying the weight of the interaction. On dates, it might be even more complex because of nerves or the pressure to make a good impression. Sometimes breaking the ice with light-hearted or fun questions, like asking about their most memorable travel experience or a favorite movie, can help. These topics are often safe and can reveal more about their interests without feeling too intrusive. Have you found any particular type of question or approach that works better in these dating scenarios to get the conversation flowing more naturally?
Honestly, whenever I've run into such a situation, it's been difficult for me to break the person out of their shell. I'm not sure that I have a really good track record with that, but if I were to try to be more intentional about improving the ways I go about doing that, I would say one, open questions like you suggested, and two, like you said, trying to figure out topics that are more closer to their hearts. And I guess the difficulty for me has been figuring out these topics to begin with, especially when you're trying to be more direct. You ask them that, hey, what are you interested in? Or what do you like to do on your spare time? And the only answer you get is, I don't do much. I just hang out with friends or something like that. Then it kind of kills every path of conversation that you try to guide, and that is a bit challenging. I know I'm not answering your question. I'm kind of expressing the difficulty and finding ways around this problem. But I mean, I'm open to suggestions other than the ones that you've said already. I think it's probably going to be a multiple faceted approach.
I totally get where you're coming from. It can be really challenging when you're hitting those conversational roadblocks, especially with vague answers. One approach you might try is sharing a bit more about yourself first. It can sometimes encourage the other person to open up. For example, instead of asking them directly what they like to do, you could start with, I really enjoy hiking on weekends because it helps me clear my mind. Do you have any activities that help you relax? This can make it easier for them to latch onto something specific and respond with more than just a few words. Another tactic could be to focus on the present moment or environment. Commenting on the setting or something happening around you can provide a natural segue into a deeper conversation. For instance, if you're at a cafe, you might say, this place has such a cozy vibe. Do you have a favorite spot you like to visit? And sometimes adding a touch of humor or playful banter can help break the ice and make the other person feel more at ease. It doesn't always have to be about finding the perfect topic, but creating a relaxed atmosphere where they feel comfortable sharing more. In the end, It's important to remember that not every conversation will flow smoothly, and that's okay. You're honing your skills and learning from each interaction. Have you noticed any patterns in what tends to engage people more, even if it's just a little bit?
Not really. I don't think the fact that I'm so introverted helps towards that at all. And to be fair, most people are more helpful than what I just described, the caricature that I just described. But that does happen more frequently than I think every one of us have probably experienced that at one point or another. I did want to wrap this up, and I really like those insights you gave about ways that I could go about improving this. You said to ask open questions, to try to figure out things that they're interested in, to try to, what else did you say?
Sure. Here's a quick recap of the strategies we discussed. 1. Ask open-ended questions to encourage more detailed responses. 2. Share something about yourself first to create a more engaging conversation and encourage them to reciprocate. 3. Focus on the present moment or environment to find natural conversation starters. 4. Use humor or playful banter to make the atmosphere more relaxed and inviting. These strategies can help make conversations flow more naturally and create opportunities for deeper connections. Even as an introvert, these can be effective tools to navigate small talk.
And like you said, as we improve on this, there are going to be many times when we fail. Sometimes it's not going to be through any fault of our own. Some people are just, some people are hopeless when it comes to bringing them out of that shell, that figurative shell. So I think that was actually the main point of this video, was to highlight the fact that we just have to be patient with ourselves and even that person. We shouldn't take it so personally. We should just allow that some people we're going to really connect with while others not so much, and that's okay.
That's a fantastic point to make in your video. It's a reminder that not every interaction will be a home run, and that's perfectly normal. By being patient with yourself and others, you're already setting the stage for more meaningful connections in the future. Plus, it takes the pressure off and makes the process of improving your conversational skills more enjoyable and less stressful.